welcome back to this week's episode of People Over Politics. It's still Pride Month, so happy Pride to everyone in the community. And the thought is like in Maryland, we want to be as inclusive as possible, right? And so I have a new guest on, first time ever, Ashwani Jain. Thanks for joining us, Ashwani.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me.
Ashwani, for people who don't know about you, please tell them a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ashwani Jain, and I use he, him pronouns, and I'm running for governor to make politics inclusive and accessible. And so what I always tell people is there's 4 reasons to support me. Number 1, even though I would be the nation's youngest governor, I have experience working in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, the Obama White House, and 2 federal agencies. Number 2, I'm fully accessible, being the only governor candidate to spend 90% of my time meeting voters at their homes in a different county every day of the week. Number 3, I'm fully accountable, having created the first statewide campaign in the United States that is 100% run by residents. And number 4, I'm fully transparent, having shared the most detailed and fully paid for policy agenda a year and a half ago in January of 2021 at our website, janeforgovernor.com. And I'm proud to say that we have built one of the largest grassroots campaigns without hosting a single fundraiser or taking a penny from developers, businesses, PACs, or polluters. So I'm proud of the support that we have, and I'm happy to talk more.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think I saw somewhere that, if elected, you'll be the youngest governor.
Yeah. Like I just mentioned, if elected, I would be the nation's youngest governor. I would be Maryland's first governor of color, first Asian governor. I'm the only Asian candidate running for governor in the first place. But I bring all that up to say that there is a disconnect sometimes with what we see in our politics and what residents are actually living through. And so being able to bring not only the professional experience, but also the lived experiences of Maryland residents and making the process genuinely more inclusive and accessible is, I think, one of the strengths of our campaign.
Amen to that. And so when you say the youngest, do you know, like being a history buff, do you know of the youngest ever or the youngest currently at the moment?
Yeah, in modern history, Bill Clinton was the actual youngest. I think he got elected at 31 as governor. I would be 33 if elected. I'm 32 right now. So he has me beat by like a year and a half. But currently, the average age of a governor in the state of in the United States, I think, is around 40 or 50 years old. But again, we have a big age discrepancy, and it's figuring out how do you bridge the gap between young people who are told by elected officials, we need you to march, to rally, to protest, to canvass, but only when it's to keep them in power. So bridge that gap between them and folks who have been doing this forever, who are much more seasoned, so to speak, and much older, and figuring out how do we actually work together.
Okay. And so one of the
or maybe not.
Well, this is why we need universal broadband access across the state.
Absolutely.
Man, the digital divide.
Yep. I was just mentioning this is why we need universal broadband, and I've been talking about this for a year and a half. So I understand. No worries.
Is that something that we can make happen at the state level? I know that the mayor of my city promised people free internet. That's still a long ways away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It is really important, and it is a civil rights issue, an economic issue. And so at a statewide level, making sure that, for example, we have 5G antennas on utility poles and street lights and libraries. I mean, there are a lot of easy, practical, tangible steps that we need to take because there's a lot of folks throughout the state of Maryland that are having difficulty accessing virtual learning, having difficulty accessing, their customers if they're a business, or just individuals just trying to get the services that they desperately need. So it is something that we've been talking about for a year and a half, and it's all about how do you prioritize the budget, and are you actually prioritizing the people of Maryland versus just special interests or big donors?
Agreed. And Ashwani, that's why I think that there's some differences in your campaigns than a lot of the other traditional campaigns. For one, the first thing I realized was, you didn't need swaths of money to continue campaigning and to get your message out there, right? Like, you've been competitive spending the least, right?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that you're probably the most grassroots candidate. And one of the things I really liked early on is you did that mobile office.
Yep.
So it was very, very grassroots. You just started setting up anywhere, all over the state, right? And saying, here's where I'll be if you want to ask me questions. But I did think that was very unique. A question that I have is, what would you do as governor to improve the quality among ongoing inflation? And I know that that's probably a ringer, but it's something that the next governor is going to have to think about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, right. When you have rising prices, it's not just happening right now. It's been happening for many Marylanders for a long time. So that's where you have to, number one, understand what is in the purview of the state and what's the purview of the federal level. Number two, we have to make sure that corporations actually pay their fair share, because one of the reasons why we have such high gas prices is not just what's happening in the international stage, but it's because you have oil executives that are, making these enormous profits and, still raising their prices or still cutting their employee benefits. And so making sure that at the statewide level, for example, we have combined reporting, making sure that states who ship goods into our state from others actually are taxed on those goods, making sure that if you're a company who makes more than $100 million a year in digital advertisement, you actually get taxed on that as well. So that's one part of the solution. And then the other part is tackling the entire system comprehensively. One of our signature programs is called the Maryland Now Plan. It's fully paid for on my website, janeforgovernor.com, but it's going to eliminate the state income tax for 95% of Maryland workers, make public transit more available and completely free, create the nation's first guaranteed jobs program to give you a job if you're struggling to find one, and then in addition to that, getting money out of politics. So all those things working hand in hand, that's how we can provide more economic sustainability in the short term and the long term.
Hey, that's a great response. And in all fairness, I just want to understand the perspectives and the viewpoints of the different candidates running. Would you be a second chance candidate? And when I say that, I mean second chance in the sense of, we have already given prisoners who have committed who have served their time, the right to vote once they're released. My thought is taking it a step further and being more people oriented and allowing, convicted people who are still in there, not awaiting trial or not, serve their sentence, but convicted people, the right to vote. So is that something that you would champion, that you would support if you win?
1,000% yes. And in our criminal justice platform, we were the first campaign to share one back in January of 2021. We talk about tackling the entire system comprehensively. That means everything from ending extreme sentences for children, ending the money bail system, continuing the end of for-profit prison contracts, decriminalizing scheduled drugs like cocaine, heroin, and meth, and instead of sending you to jail, send you to a local and fully funded rehab center, making sure that we remove SROs from all of our public schools and replace them with guidance counselors and mental health professionals, making sure that if you are in prison, we're preparing you for life outside of prison by removing the box for employers who discriminate against you, making sure we help you with workforce training programs, access to housing, making sure that we limit the influence of ICE for nonviolent offenders, making sure that we actually give you a guaranteed job. All those issues tie hand in hand together, and we're not doing enough at the state to do that.
Yeah, you hit it right on the nose. And some of the candidates have said definitively yes, that they would allow that to happen. And some of them said that they would stick with what we have going on already, and as long as they successfully completed their sentence, then they should be given their right. And the biggest question that I think I posed is, why was their right taken away in the first place?
Yeah.
And I never got a concrete answer.
I mean, listen, we have a problem in this state of warehousing people. That's really what it's all about, right? It is warehousing, and more specifically, warehousing Black and brown people. And I think the reason why you keep having these issues time and time again is because we keep electing the same kind of people over and over again, right? We seem to only elect people who have the biggest names, the most money, the most endorsements. But the reality is that doesn't actually solve the problems that people like us have been fighting for and advocating for decades. And so that's where we really need to change our politics, not just to win an election, but to really reform the institutions that have been pushing so many people down, especially in marginalized communities.
Okay. And I agree with you. And Ashwani, one of the interesting things I recall was you were one of the first to pick your lieutenant governor, if I recall.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say, tell us about your lieutenant governor, why you picked them, and just go on that fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So my running mate, her name is Latrice Hawkins Lights. She's a healthcare advocate and community activist. She's a juvenile type 1 diabetes survivor, a transplant recipient, and a product of Prince George's County Public Schools. And I picked her because she and her family really represent the typical Marylander. One who works hard, who gives back to their community, who understands the challenges of the healthcare system, the importance of public schools, and can really elevate the voices of those who are marginalized, who are forgotten about, or just overlooked by our political system. She is not a traditional lieutenant governor candidate. I am not a traditional governor candidate. But I think that's what residents are really grappling with and resonating with, is the fact that we represent what most people are going through. And it's how do we connect those dots? How do we build those bridges? Because elected experience is not the only kind of experience that matters.
Agreed. And so she is a well-rounded individual. She has a lot of life experience, right? A lot of lived experience. And yes, Ashwani, my bad. Cut off there. I was saying I think she has a lot of lived experience, and I think that will really help her connect with the everyday person.
Yeah.
Instead of being a bureaucrat, that's caught up in the establishment, so I look forward to meeting your LG. I don't believe I've met your LG, so I'm definitely looking forward to meeting your LG. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, I'm not sure if you know, but they call me the cannabis councilman. I'm a cannabis advocate, medical patient. So I just want to know, what are your thoughts on the future of the state of Maryland cannabis?
Yeah.
And what do you want to see in the framework? And kind of.
Sir, you're on mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, my apologies. I'll start at the back. So once legalization passes, I believe it'll pass on the ballot. I believe then we'll go to the legislature and work out a framework. Will that framework be equitable and inclusive towards Black and brown people, in which the medical market wasn't? Then what do you want to see for the state of Maryland cannabis?
Absolutely. So again, hold me accountable. I was the first candidate, at least statewide candidate in Maryland, to actually talk about fully legalizing marijuana and fully expunging records. We launched this plan both in our criminal justice plan and our Maryland Now plan in January of 2021, a year and a half ago. So I do talk about making sure that we raise a lot of economic revenue from legalizing marijuana. We remove some of the racial injustices by expunging records and removing them from police and court records, and allowing local farmers as well as minority communities, Black and brown communities, to participate in this economic growth. And the way we can do that is by expanding enterprise zones, offering tax credits to either farmers or local business owners to actually get the materials and the machines, for example, that they might need to cultivate hemp, to actually produce and sell marijuana as well. So it is a fully comprehensive approach, and I'm proud to say that I've been advocating for this publicly on the campaign for 1.5 years.
Hey, that is huge. That is huge, Ashwani. And one of the things you mentioned in there was hemp, right? So as we talk about, the fun of cannabis and THC, today's a little bit of Murphy's Law, Ashwani.
No worries.
Murphy's Law. But as I was saying, you brought up a big point about how we can be leaders in the hemp industry, because hemp has so many uses. Hemp is eco-friendly. Hemp is cost efficient. So as hemp continues to flourish, I see Maryland, being in the forefront. We have a lot of agriculture in rural areas, and where we can, grow hemp, and process hemp successfully.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So with Ashwani, you definitely gotta come join us when we have our cannabis conference, our first cannabis conference.
Absolutely.
The network's gonna do a cannabis conference and invite a lot of cannabis industry and people within the ecosystem. So definitely want to invite you in one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Yes, and so one of the other questions I have for you is what made you run for governor, right? Like what made you want to take this step? Because the thought is like you're gonna get a lot of gray hairs if you do get the position.
Absolutely.
I'm curious.
No, honestly, it's because I really want to make the political process inclusive and accessible. And when you are a governor, you have the power of the budget, you have the power to appoint leaders to run your agencies, and you can actually enforce policies in an equitable manner. And I've been working on these issues for most of my adult life, and I'm just sick and tired of us not making meaningful progress on a host of issues, or actually making the system actually engage residents in a very sincere and thoughtful manner. And so we have an open governor seat. I have the professional and lived experiences that are needed in the governor's office. I understand how to organize in all 24 counties, not just as a talking point, not just once the primary is over, but from day one of my operation. And I have really specific policy solutions to actually move forward and resolve a lot of the issues we are facing.
Agreed. I mean, and the reason I ask is because, like, I know that, the governor is a very powerful position. I know that they a lot of times control that budget, that purse. But like I said, it's a consuming position, right? Like I feel like you're like the president of this very important state, right? So in a sense, you are, right. You're the president of the state, and that was one of the things that I've seen. But I would say that I'm glad that you ran, right, because you bring different voices to the conversation, and I hope that other people have the confidence to run, right, like in the future, especially more women, because as you know, we got so many males in this race. So I definitely hope we have more women that step up to run.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely need more women. I mean, the fact that, I'm the only young Democrat who's on the stage, I think that's ridiculous. The fact that I'm the only Asian candidate, that's ridiculous. The fact that I'm the only candidate that has a foreign name on the stage, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many marginalized communities that look at politics the way it's been done and are frustrated. They get apathetic about politics. They feel pushed down. I mean, I'm the only governor candidate who spends 90% of my time canvassing and visiting all 24 counties consistently. I'm the only governor candidate that doesn't just say I want money out of politics, but hasn't hosted a single fundraiser and has not taken a penny from developers, businesses, PACs, or polluters, and yet still has built a successful statewide operation with one of the largest grassroots campaigns this state has ever seen. So I'm hoping that with the platform and the way we're running, not only are we going to win the primary, not only are we going to win the general, not only are we going to be able to govern effectively, but we can really inspire more folks to understand you don't need to have a certain kind of political experience. You don't need to have elected office or raise a ton of money and kind of sell your soul or just give false promises in order to make a difference or actually lead on these issues that all of us are going to be held accountable for.
Agreed. Shawnee, you hit a lot of great points. I think one of the things that I'll say is you have personality that some of the other candidates don't have, or not don't have, that they lack. Some of them lack personality. So I saw scouring social media, you did a mean tweets post, and I thought that was pretty. I thought that was pretty clever because in politics and public service, one of the things is like you should make it digestible. You should make it relatable, and people want to see that you're a person, and not just a lawmaker or policy wonk. They want to know that you're a person just like they are, and I think that they can appreciate the genuineness. So I have realized that you're the young guy. You're willing to experiment. You're willing to be mainstream in some regards. Of course, not policy wise. You're definitely probably the most left candidate, or one of the, like what. Well, you have Jerome in the race now, right? Jerome switched to being a Dem. So without including Jerome in that mix,
yeah,
I would argue you're probably closest to Bernie.
Yeah, I was just about to say, yeah, I mean, we have a very comprehensive plan of policies, right? We take things from Bernie Sanders, from Elizabeth Warren, from Obama, from Biden. I mean, we are pretty comprehensive, and I think that's why we have so much support from all 24 counties, right? Because we're moving forward on a progressive agenda, but also talking about how to pay for things, also talking about the economic benefit of these social issues, and actually allowing residents to help make all these policies and help make these decisions, and showing up, right? And I think that's why I say it's not just a primary election strategy, it is a general election strategy as well, and putting in those accountability measures so that residents don't have to fear that once we're in office, then you won't be able to get a hold of me, or, we're going to forget about you, because residents are the only people running our campaign.
That I'm sorry, that was on mute, but that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's a good message to lead them on. But I wanted to ask you two quick questions, and then I'll do the lightning round, get you out of here.
There you go. No worries.
What were some legislative wins this year? What was something that you were really excited about and that you championed this legislative session?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, since 2017, I've been, advocating and lobbying for the blueprint. So I'm happy that got passed, but now we need to fully fund it. I've been advocating for police accountability, and I'm happy that we passed some measures, but again, I don't think it goes far enough. I've been advocating, and I was the first candidate in Maryland, even before Speaker Jones, to actually have a reproductive justice plan. So I'm happy that they at least passed some measures, but I don't believe we needed to wait for the referendum. I believe we should have taken actions right now. And obviously our current governor is taking away funds for the training of those medical professionals to perform abortions. So there's a lot of good that is done, but I think the problem is, and a lot of residents feel this way, we're not going far enough. We keep spending a lot of time and money on more research, more studies, even though we've already spent the money on research and studies. We know it needs to be done. We could have legalized marijuana, but we decided to, again, push it back until November for the referendum. All these issues, why are we waiting? Why are we just, kicking the can down the road? And also, why are we not engaging residents in the process? Every other candidate is saying, oh, once I'm elected, I'm going to engage residents in the process, right? But what about the last year and a half that you've been running your campaigns? Why are you still forcing residents to pay money to have a one-on-one with you? Why are you still, making it harder for folks to get access to you by not visiting their communities and actually walking block to block? All these issues, I think, frustrate a lot of residents. And that's one of the things that we're fighting against right now.
Well, it's funny about a lot of great things. The fact that you're not only available, but you're accessible to the people, right? Because we know that money provides you access. Being politicals, we know that money provides you access in the sense that people tend to listen to you more when you talk with your dollars, but also the access you get, right? Like money might get you favors that you wouldn't get if you didn't have this money. Right. So I appreciate you bringing up that aspect of it, because one of the things I've worked for a couple statewide candidates, one of the things that I hated is none of them were grassroots. None of them were really door knocking. More of them were focused on smoke and mirrors and fake grassroots. And they were more interested in doing meet and greets with top stakeholders in the community, and not really everyday individuals. Not to say that these people weren't, right, everyday lay people, but they were, somewhat of higher stature individuals. It's not your everyday, teacher or your everyday garbage truck worker or, you know, your everyday retailer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know, one of the and I appreciate you mentioning that, because so far, not including with my team, I myself have personally knocked on more than 32,000 doors across this state. And that is more than any other statewide candidate has done. And so again, it's not just talking the talk. It is actually walking the walk, walking the block, and making sure that I myself as a candidate for governor am doing something that's never been done before. And that is actually meeting people where they are at their homes. And people appreciate that. And I think that's why we've been able to do with just $100,000 what other campaigns need $4 to $6 million to accomplish. Is because we're willing to put in the work, and we're really thinking about things in an innovative way and allowing residents the most accessible, accountable, and transparent candidate.
Hey, amen to that. Amen to that. And you got to make it out to Laurel. Let me know when you come to Laurel. We got a lot of summer events coming up. So let me know when you make it out to Laurel. You know, I'm grassroots, so
Absolutely.
you know, I take you around. I introduce you to some people. But at the end of the day, you got to do the work yourself. They got to see you in the community. But if you're willing to come on out, I'll show you the best things that Laurel has to offer.
Absolutely.
And so the lightning round. Are you a Pepsi or Coke type of guy?
I'm a Pepsi guy.
A Pepsi guy. Okay, cool. Favorite superhero?
I'm sorry?
Oh, favorite superhero.
Oh, I gotta say Spider-Man, because he was you know, a loser, weird kid, and then he got all these superpowers, and he's a community superhero. Spider-Man, because he was a very weird kid in high school. So was I feel. And he is a community superhero. He actually walks the block. He you know, he stays at a local level, and I relate a lot to that.
And I appreciate that. I think you're one of the first ones to mention Spider-Man. I mean, like the studio producer Will, he might have said Spider-Man. If he didn't, he said Superman. So you might be the only one that
I mean, listen, Superman and Batman, they're like the obvious choices. But like, if you really want a good superhero who's actually going to have your back, that's Spider-Man. Come on.
Now, I'm going with Static Shock, but you know that.
Oh, wow. That's deep. That's a deep cut.
But as I said, I was going with Static Shock. But the last question I wanted to ask you is, what is your favorite Maryland event as a statewide Maryland candidate?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mean, man,
nobody's gonna be jealous. Nobody's gonna be jealous either.
That's a great. I mean, honestly, I don't want to give you a political answer, but it's every day. It is an honor just to be able to walk the streets and visit people at their homes. And I know that's not an event, but it is something that doesn't happen enough. And I consider that as events. And like I said, 90% of our campaign events are canvassing and going door to door. So I know that doesn't really answer your question, but I consider that an event, and that's my favorite Maryland event.
I love it. You love hitting doors. I got you. I like doors too. And so before I get you out of here, last thing, I saw you were excluded from a debate recently. So I didn't know if you wanted to address that. I thought that wasn't great democratic practice, but
yeah, I mean, honestly, this is not the first time. There have been a couple different public governor debates that me and my team were excluded from. There have been, interviews that I've done with reporters that they refuse to post. This has happened a lot. And I think, again, it's not just about me. A lot of young people, a lot of marginalized communities, a lot of individuals who are trying to change the status quo face these kinds of barriers all the time from the establishment, from party members, from elected officials, from the press. And I think that is why people are frustrated with politics. You can't say when it means getting you in power that we need all these people to get involved and then shut them up when they actually want to take accountability on these issues and lead on these issues. So it happens all the time. It's unfortunate, but we're pushing through it, and we're not taking no for an answer, and we're going straight to the people and making sure we're doing innovative tactics to still get our message out.
Hey, Well, I appreciate that, and tell people how they can stay connected with you.
Absolutely. So they can go to jainforgovernor.com. That's JAINFOR governor.com. You can find out more about my experience, more about the 150 plus detailed policies we have. You can request a free yard sign. You can volunteer. And anyone who reaches out to my campaign to help out, they get direct access to me as a candidate for governor. I make time to have a one-on-one and actually personalize the volunteer experience as well. So if you want to help make policy, strategy, outreach, you name it, we have opportunities. We have training provided as well. And we would be honored to have your support.
I apologize about every technical issue, but as you mentioned, it's important to address the digital divide as the next governor. So I appreciate you, and hope to see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for the work you do. And yeah, I can't wait to meet up in person.
Yes, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Whew. Good one. Good one. So that was Ashwani. A lot to look forward to, and we have.